All right, everyone, we're going to get started here in just about a minute. All right, so it's about 12, so we can go ahead and get started. So hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. My name is Keating, and I'm the founder, licensee, and lead organizer of TEDxBainbridgeIslandWomen. And so first, we would like to begin by acknowledging that Bainbridge Island, the land on which our team gathers, is within the Aboriginal territory of the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish people live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Sailor Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here, the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. And so while we are thanking, I'd like to thank our sponsors and partners, United Way of Kitsap County and West Sound Technology Association, also known as WSTA. Thank you both so much for your support, and we would not have been able to put on this event without you. And so what exactly is TEDx? And so we have this video here that will explain the difference between TED and TEDx and what goes into the production of these kinds of events, as well as what it takes to speak in them. And so we'll watch this video for about a minute and a half.
Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Awesome. And so now that we know a little bit more about TEDx, now we can introduce our executive team. And so while it is small, it is very powerful. They've all done a great job with switching to having this event being online instead of in person. And so, as I said earlier, I'm the lead organizer and licensee. And because I am a minor, the co-organizer has to be an adult. And in this case, it is Doña Keating. Throughout the event, we'll be watching the Q&A in the chat, see what your ideas worth spreading are. And if we see any questions that we can answer, we'll try to answer them to the best of our abilities. And if we don't get to answer them right away, then we'll also have an opportunity to answer any other questions you may have during the Q&A. And so Lena Wood is our operations lead, and Tim Duffey is the production lead. Tim will be running the Zoom today, and Lena Wood will be helping him. And Patty Brown and Talina Wood are the MCs and hosts for today. So you will be interacting with them for most of today. They will be introducing each of the speakers. You'll be hearing some of their thoughts on each of the talks, and you'll be interacting with them through the poll and the Q&A at the end. And so here are the talks that you'll be hearing from today. Some of them are live and some of them are pre-recorded, and you'll get a little bit of an introduction for each of them by the MCs. And so just kind of getting a feel for the program flow, we are in our opening remarks. Then we'll have talks 1 through 4 you see listed here. We'll take about a 5-minute break. We'll have talks 5 through 9, and then we'll have our Q&A and closing remarks. And you'll see here that we have a note that the talk by Tracy Young may be triggering for some individuals. So once her talk is introduced, then you can decide if you feel comfortable listening or watching it. And so some quick event guidelines before we head straight into the event. Please do not take any photos or videos of any aspect of the event. While it is virtual instead of in person, the same rules still do apply. And keep in mind that you will get access to each of the pre-recorded talks. And once the live speakers are also accepted, then you'll get the links for those talks as well. And so please do engage one another and our speakers via the Q&A and the chat function. We'd love to hear your ideas worth spreading and make sure that you're respectfully doing so. And so thank you. Please enjoy the event. We have a wonderful lineup of talks today. And I'm going to hand over the mic to our MCs.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Patty Brown. I go by she, her, hers. I'm a Bainbridge Island local living in Paulsbo area. I spent 20 years in the technology field, and like many of us, I found myself at a crossroads when the pandemic hit. After evaluating how I could live a more purposeful life, I dove into studies and am now a full-time artist, holistic wellness coach, and yoga teacher, helping others on their path to wellness. I'm delighted to introduce my co-MC, Lena Wood.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lena Wood, she, her, hers, and I'm the executive director of the youth-focused nonprofit Teen Talking Circles based here on Bainbridge Island. Similar to my co-host Patty, I realized that my life was not fully aligned with my values, and in 2019, I made the career change to a heart-centered vocation in the nonprofit world. Today, we are here to listen to, learn from, and lift up women from all around the globe. We have so much to learn from each other and so much of ourselves to share. Now more than ever, we need the collective knowledge and wisdom of all women. And I believe the speakers today have so much to offer us. I am excited, and I know you all are too. And now you've heard a little about Patty and I's background, and we'd love to get to know you.
So we're going to start with a couple of polls. Please take a minute and complete the following. Where are you from? What is your age? And scroll down for what women's issue is most important to you.
So everyone should have a pop-up that came, and feel free to, I see we've got some Portland, Oregon, and some people from outside of Washington. And it looks like gender equity is really important, as well as women in STEM. Excellent. Okay. Oh, hello. Looks like we've got quite a few from outside of Washington. That's wonderful. A lot of Bainbridge Island representation. All right. And a really nice age spread. It's so lovely to see. Wonderful. Okay. And, oh, good. Wow, quite a few of you, women's health, violence against women and girls. That's great. Looks like we've got somebody represented on every single one of these issues that we have listed in the poll. Thank you so much for responding.
All right, so I believe that leads us into our very first talk. So our speaker, Joshua Mata, is a spiritual teacher and leader. Having spent decades in the corporate and business world, Joshua Mata came to a profound realization that caused her to leave that life behind. Now she devotes her life to helping people to apply Buddhist teachings to their own lives, to quiet their minds and create positive and personal transformations. I'm delighted to present Joshua Mata in her talk, How a Simple Mantra Resulted in Profound Personal Transformation, curated by TEDx Colombo.
During the peak of coronavirus pandemic in Sri Lanka, that is mid-2020, I came up with a surprising way to fill my life with bliss and grace. A magical mantra was nurturing in the garden of my mind. It felt like all good thoughts that I have planted in my mind has begun to blossom into something beautiful. This magical mantra was like a magic pill for all perceived suffering, which not only affected my life, but everyone else connected to me. 38 years of my life, I went on a self-seeking journey, finding who am I. I went through a conscious dying process, letting go of everything attached to my name. Well-established career as a coach, a charity consultant, hypnotherapist, energy healer. Intimate relationships, attachment to family, 12 years of well-established business. So what was this magical mantra that transformed my life for better? Thank you were the two simple words that filled the space between my ears like a music in my head. This was experienced profoundly during the pandemic as everyone connected to me was filled with fear and doubt and anxiety, and I had to do something different. The first thought came to my mind first thing in the morning as I woke up was thank you. And the last thought occupied my mind when I went to sleep at night was thank you. I was thinking thank you when I ate, when I drank, when I worked, when I walked, sat silently, when I consumed every man-made material. It was like a music in my mind. Sometimes I said the word thank you loudly even to inanimate objects like sun and the moon and the stars, birds, butterflies, trees, little creatures in the garden, as if I was greeting them. When you say thank you, it creates a harmony between you and the external condition under observation. It helps you to bring your attention inwards. It may be initially just a word running in your head without a true feeling of gratitude in your heart. A word is a sound, and a sound is a vibration, and vibration creates energy. So when you keep thinking thank you, after a while that energy starts penetrating into your heart center and the rest of the body. We cannot do much about troubled times and conditions in life, but we certainly can do something to calm ourselves during troubled times. Human mind is like water. If it gets affected by external conditions, It creates movement and you cannot see the depth. This magical mantra, thank you, and the true feeling of gratitude in your heart can help you deal with any life situation peacefully, joyfully, and blissfully. May all beings be well, happy, free from all suffering, and be enlightened. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Such a simple, everyday phrase. But do we stop and think about thank you and what it truly means beyond the words? Expanding on that, think about how what we are grateful for makes us feel. This is where the energy shift begins.
You know, one of the quotes that really stood out for me was a word is a sound, and sound is vibration, and vibration creates energy. I really love that. And I feel like in our own way that all of us here together today are creating energy together. I just love that. So thank you for being a part of that and that gratitude. How did that video feel for everybody? How it was I love that it gives us a moment to really take a moment and think about gratitude. And like you said, thank you.
I love that it's a magical mantra that we can embody every single day. Shift the energy, make it positive with a heart full of gratitude.
I'm feeling a lot of gratitude for everybody here right now. So thank you for joining us. Well, our next speaker is Julia Gillard and Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And so we have the inimitable Julie Gillard, the Honorable Julie Gillard, who was the 27th Prime Minister of Australia and is a powerful advocate for women's leadership. Much of her work addresses underrepresentation in leadership through research, practice, and advocacy. And she is the co-author of Women in Leadership, Real Lives, Real Lessons with Dr. Ngozi. She is the patron of the Campaign for Female Education, and she also serves as the chair of the global funding body for education in developing countries, the Global Partnership for Education. Gillard is also the chair of Beyond Blue, which is Australia's leading mental health awareness body. Joining Julia is Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is a respected global economist and international development expert. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was the finance minister of Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, from 2003 to 2006, and then the country's foreign affairs minister. She was the first woman to hold either position. From 2011 to 2015, she was again named Minister of Finance and the coordinating minister for the economy of Nigeria. She worked to free her country from $30 billion of debt owed to the Paris Club, modernize the financial management systems by introducing transparency and publishing government accounts, and use technology to help block leakage of revenues and fight corruption. These two powerhouse women of the global political stage combine forces to share why female leadership rocks and how everyone can do it.
Ngozi, 10 years ago when I became Prime Minister of Australia, I assumed that at the start there would be a strong reaction to me being the first woman, but it would abate over time and then I would be treated the same as every other Prime Minister had been. I was so wrong. That didn't happen. The longer I governed, the more visible the sexism became. I don't want any other woman to be blindsided like that. That's why I'm so excited about working with you to help women get ready to lead in what is still a sexist world.
I share that sense of excitement. After I was Finance Minister of Nigeria, I was overwhelmed by the number of women who wanted me to be their mentor. It is terrific that aspiring young women are keen to learn from those who have gone before, but there are still too few female role models, especially women of color. Now, as a result of the work we have done together, I can offer everyone clear standout lessons that are based not just on my own experience, but on the global research on women and leadership and the candid insights of leading women.
One of the things to share is that there's joy in being a leader, in having the opportunity to put your values into action. Emphasising the positive makes a real difference to the power of role modelling. If we only focus on the sexist and negative experiences, women may decide that being a leader sounds so grim they don't want to do it. On the other hand, if we pretend it's all rosy and easy, women and girls can be put off because they decide leadership is only for superwomen who never have any problems. We all have to get the balance right. But Ngozi, it's impossible to talk about role models right now without asking you, how does it make you feel to see Kamala Harris elected as Vice President?
I'm delighted. It's important to the aspiration of girls and women that they see role models they can relate to. Vice President-elect Harris is exactly that kind of role model, particularly for girls and women of color. And every woman who steps forward makes more space for the women who come next.
Of course, both of us know from our own experiences that even when women get to the top, unfortunately, too much time and attention will be spent on what they look like rather than what they do and say. Ngozi, for women, is it still all about the hair?
Certainly, Julia. I laughed when Hilary Clinton said she envied my dress style and particularly my signature scarf, so I don't need to worry about my hair. Like many of our women leaders, I've effectively adopted a uniform. It's a colorful one, it's African, it's me. I have developed my own style that I wear every day and I don't vary from it. That has helped protect me from endless discussion of my appearance. It's helped me to get people to listen to my words, not look at my clothes.
Hilary told us she lost the equivalent of 24 full days of campaign time in the 2016 election, getting her hair and makeup done every day. But actually, contemporary problems for women leaders go far deeper than anything to do with looks. I'd better warn you now, I'm about to use a word many people would find rude. My favourite funny moment in our travels was discussing resting bitch face with Prime Minister Erna Solberg of Norway. The global research shows that if a man comes across as strong, ambitious, even self-seeking, that's fine. But if a woman does it, then the reactions against her can be as visceral as revulsion or contempt. They're pretty mind-bogglingly strong words, aren't they?
They certainly are, and women leaders talk about it intuitively, understanding that to be viewed as acceptable as a leader, they have to stay balanced on a tightrope between strength and empathy. If they come across as too tough, they're viewed as hard and unlikable. But if they come across as too soft, they're seen to be lacking the backbone needed to lead.
The problem is we still all have sexist stereotypes whirring in the back of our brains. I was portrayed as out of touch because I don't have children. I was even compared to a barren cow in the bush, destined to be killed for hamburger mince.
That's horrible that you face that stereotype. While I was worried that people will think I couldn't do my job when my family was young, I enjoyed talking to New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern about her experience as the second woman ever to have a child while being a national leader. I was very taken by her saying she doesn't think she gets the work-life balance right, in the sense that she doesn't like the word balance, and there's always guilt. She just makes it work.
Ngozi, where are men in this?
Hopefully manning up. Men can more equitably share domestic and caring work. They can point out sexism when they see it. They can make space for women and mentor and sponsor them. Given that men disproportionately still have the power, we won't see change unless they work with us to create a world that will be better for men and women.
Let's talk about the glass cliff phenomenon. If a business or an organisation is going well, then they're likely to appoint a new leader who looks a lot like the old one, that is, a man. But if they are in difficulties, they decide it's time to get someone quite different and often reach for a woman. To take one example, Christine Lagarde became the first woman to lead the International Monetary Fund when it was in crisis after its former head was arrested for sexual assault. Ngozi, while not as dramatic as that, you know a bit about glass cliffs too.
I certainly do. I remember clearly being chosen as a young woman to lead a very problematic World Bank project in Rwanda. No one else wanted to lead it lest they fail. So there was this attitude of, if she pulls it off, it's okay. If she fails, then well, she's just a young African woman whose career doesn't matter that much. From that experience, I learned things about myself and leadership. And the biggest lesson we can share is this. If you have a sense of purpose that drives you, then aim high, become a leader. And make room as you go. Former US Secretary of State Madeleine Albright is fond of saying that there's a special place in hell for women who don't support women. In this world, we need to be there for each other.
There is a bit of good news and bad news here. Certainly the research shows that the stereotype about the businesswoman who makes it to the top and then stops other women coming through isn't borne out by the facts. The constraint seems to be that organisations think once they've got a woman or two, they don't need to worry about gender anymore. But we do have to be frank. Women do get pitted against other women for the limited number of seats at the table. We have to be wary of having our solidarity with each other eroded by this politics of scarcity. Instead, we should work together to change the rules that keep us at the margins.
So to summarize, our standout lessons are, number one, there's no right way to be a woman leader. Be true to yourself.
Number two, we know that women leaders face sexism and stereotyping. So sit down with your mentors, sponsors, best supporters and friends and war game. How are you going to deal with the gendered moments, with being judged on your appearance, with being assumed to be a bit of a bitch, or with your family choices questioned? Forewarned is forearmed.
Number three, get everyone you know talking about gender stereotypes and debunking them. These false assumptions can't survive being held up to the light of day.
Number four, there are structural barriers too. Don't wait until you need help balancing work and family life or to be fairly evaluated for promotion. Be a supporter of systems and changes that aid gender equality, even if you don't personally need them immediately.
Number five, don't take a backward step. Don't shy away from taking up space in the world. Don't assume you're too junior or people are too busy. Reach out, network.
That's great advice and leads us to the most important lesson of all. Go for it.
Yes, go for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful words and advice from two leaders who have found their purpose, aimed high, and became leaders who encouraged other women to go for it. And I really appreciated their dialogue about sexism and stereotypes.
Do you know of a female leader in your life? Yes or no? Sure we do.
I think we're both female leaders.
We're working on it for sure. Women in leadership are so often thought of as islands. It's a hard place to get to and a really hard place to remain. How are you supporting them, or could you? Answer in the chat. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, I would love to see everybody commenting and sharing with each other, because I'm just going through and reading these and they're so exciting. You guys are sharing quotes and how the messages are reaching you, and how you're going to incorporate them into your own education as teachers. It's so exciting. We've got some great quotes in there. Special place in hell for women who don't support women, Madeleine Albright. It's a really great one. Yeah, that I've loved how they had such a frankness with each other that really brought you in and just made you feel like, yeah, oh, I have seen that. Yeah, oh, this is happening all over globally and worldwide. I think that many of us are learning how to be leaders in the world as women. And it's really nice and refreshing to see such prime examples on the global scale of these two women leading.
Absolutely. And leading as the world is changing. It's changing dramatically and rapidly, and we have to adapt. And what better way than finding our path in leadership and helping those around us?
Mm-hmm.
So that leads us to our next talk. Kluani Adamak has served as the Assembly of First Nations Yukon Regional Chief since January 2018. After completing her bachelor's in Canadian Studies from Carleton University in 2009, she returned home to work with Yukon First Nations and local communities in the areas of education, economic development, and governance. Adamak is passionate about supporting youth and emerging leaders in the North and beyond. She founded Our Voices, a collective of Northern Indigenous emerging leaders, and advocates for changes in the ways young people and the next generation are included in decision-making forums. In 2019, she completed her Master of Business Administration at Simon Fraser University. I'm delighted to introduce her talk, How My Matrilineal Culture Prepared Me to Lead, curated by TEDx Montreal Women.
Shia Udaneaki, Danche, Kluani Adamak Uye, Dachlawedi Ayahat, Ageyo Hatu Asauk, Ganach Chish Klek, Asia, Asua, Ganach Chish to Anquichan, Ganach Chish Kwanlandan Yukon. Hello, my name is Kluani Adamak, and I am from the Dachlawedi Killer Whale Clan. My Tlingit name is Age, and it's so important to acknowledge Klek, our grandparents. I'm joining you from the traditional territory of the Kwanlandan and Ta'an First Nations in the Yukon Territory. Ganach Chish, thank you. I shared a little bit about myself in my traditional languages of Southern Shoshone and Tlingit. I continue to learn who we are as Yukon First Nations people. We are a people that deeply value, honor, and respect the roles of women. We always have. We're a matrilineal culture. And so, traditionally, our matriarchs would often guide and direct the speakers of the people, otherwise known as the chiefs. This important role of forging trade relationships, forging marriage alliances, and ensuring that all of the business that needed to take place in the community was happening was all guided and directed by our matriarchs. I definitely continue to see the ways in which we lead here in the Yukon not quite being aligned nationally. What do I mean by that? Well, to be clear, misogyny and patriarchy are definitely not reflective of who we are as Yukon First Nations or of the traditional structures and the ways in which we respect women in decision-making. And so I saw these gaps and felt we need to have more women at the table. We need to have different generations at the table. And so this is where I had to get a bit vulnerable. I had to really look to myself to say, if not me, then who? And so I submitted my name to become the Yukon Regional Chief, knowing that I come from a strong people that continues to value and uphold women, and knowing that the voice that I would bring would be a voice that will be supported by my region. But furthermore, knowing that in every and any place where decisions are being made for women or those who identify, how important it is that women are in every place and space to be part of those decisions. And so I gave myself permission to put my name forward and to know that yes, I can serve. That yes, this was the best way for me to take action, and to know that my voice needed to be heard in the same way that other male voices were heard from across this country. There aren't any prerequisites to being a leader. It's not about having a title or being in a specific role. Leadership is about showing up who you are as you are, being authentic, leading from a place of values and principles, and leading from that place and staying true to yourself. And so some might say, well, you're in an elected position. What do you mean? Yes, I hear you. There's some irony in that. But let me explain. Contribution is the most important thing. For me, joining an executive of predominantly men, creating a space in my office where other Indigenous women could learn and lead, it was all about creating that space and by celebrating and acknowledging and contributing. There's a story that dates back to over 10,000 years ago. And the way that the story was shared with me is this. The killer whale people, the Duffey, came to this insurmountable, huge glacier. They were traveling to make it back to their traditional homelands. And so they came to this glacier and they didn't know where they were going to go. Were they going to try to climb and go above? Were they going to try to follow it and see how far long it went? It was the matriarchs that said, we'll go. We see a small opening there, and so we're going to go and we're going to try to go through it. They didn't know if they would survive. They didn't know if they'd make it through, but they were fearless. And that is who we are. We are fearless because we understand the power of reciprocity. We understand that it's important to leave things in a better state and place than when we found them. We understand that the importance of connecting to the land and expressing gratitude is truly what grounds us and gives us the power and the ability we have to lead. Think of when you're walking by the water, for example. Take a moment of gratitude to thank the water for all that it gives you, to thank the land for giving you everything you need. It's always about making sure that you're leaving things in a better place and space than when you found them. It's about contribution. All of us as women have been through so much. And so this is about us finding ways to be supportive of each other. It's about always making sure that we're making that contribution and investment in the future generations. That is about reciprocity. There's so much that we can share with the world and that the world can learn from us as women. These are the challenges that we have for this future generation, and these are the challenges that we need to accept together. We need to give ourselves the permission to step into our own power. We need to give ourselves the permission to connect and to express gratitude to the land. And we need to give ourselves the permission to take care of ourselves. Because if we're not being taken care of, then how are we going to contribute to everybody else? Ganach Chish, thank you.
Wow, that was so powerful to hear her speaking in her native language. And I so appreciate her youth focus and mentoring of future generations, because I made my career change based on that same passion, and I am so inspired by her. I hope you all felt that as well.
Such an inspiring talk by an inspiring woman. What struck me is, if not me, then who?
Mm-hmm.
Who else? The other thing is, we need to give ourselves permission. We all can be leaders. We all can be fearless. We just have to show up.
Yeah, absolutely. Gratitude was again a theme there. And I fully agree. Like, how often do we hold ourselves back? And we need to give ourselves the permission, and we need to give other women the permission.
Absolutely. And we need to take care of ourselves. How can we take care of paying it forward and nurturing and caring for everyone around us if we're not taking care of ourselves?
Absolutely.
Then we can start leaving things in a better place than where we found them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Whew, well, so we've got amazing videos that we've already watched, and we still have more to come. So I hope you guys are feeling it as much as I am. Well, I'm gonna introduce our next video, our fourth speaker. And if I get the name wrong, I apologize in advance. I practiced a lot. So Apioka Searam Ashong Abi is a Ghanaian poet, writer, literary critic, media practitioner, activist, and versatile creative of Gadame and Ewe ancestry. Living in Ghana, where oral literary traditions are intertwined with culture and history, Ashang Abbey performs within West Africa's most sophisticated spaces. She is the author of The Matriarch's Verse, and her work is noted for its rare prosaic nature and sharp, vivid imagery, which you will see. Ashang's Abbey performances are varied and animated as she reads her pieces in performance rather than delivered from memory. She injects life into poetry with classical, Afro-pop, reggae and rock music, and contemporary dance and alternative art. Her poetry concert, The Matriarch's Verse, remains Ghana's largest poetry event hosted by an individual artist. Ashang Abbey is also a production executive and host of a show which features diplomats who work in Ghana and focuses on the non-official aspects of their lives and the culture of their home nations. She's also an editorial advisor for the Influence Her project, an editorial program and global community seeking to empower and amplify female voices. So now introducing Apioka Seyaram, Ashang Abbey, in her spoken word performance.
Bask in my majesty, bounce on my woman breast, clear the way for me, take a bow for me, learn to deal with me. For I will continue to step out into the darkness at the crack of dawn, into the unknown, to chase success, to compete, to immerse myself in the tongues of fire that rage around me. It's daunting, but I do it because that's just what I do. For I'm the matriarch, the epitome of courage, of fearlessness, of burning desire, and of battle quality. A hurricane so formidable, so intoxicatingly potent. And my life must be a book of woman history, of woman heritage, the ferocious legacy of a queen who hungers and thirsts for a life that is so unapologetic in every possible way. I am the matriarch. I am the queen. I am the woman that every woman must be. I am fearless. Bask in the majesty of the kinks on the crown of my head. Allow the bounce of the fullness of my supple breasts to cushion you in the bedroom, in the darkness of the bedroom, and in the thick, smoky darkness of this treacherous world of undying flames. Take a bow when my skin of pure gold reflects the beams of the golden sun, which blind you and cause you to see the respect that I deserve. Drink in and get drunk on my stretch marks, my bulging belly, my hips of Jupiter, and my thighs of the forest. They are my badges and my medals of the battles that I fought and won, overcoming my own blood and shrieks of agony in the labor ward. Clear the way for me as I plow through the tortuous blades of the savannah and the concrete slabs of the gentrified forest. A lioness out for the kill, going for the jugular to feed a pride, a nation, including the one that they call the Lion King. Deal with my aggression, with my arrogance, and my dissidence as you describe it. Because regardless of what you do, and regardless of what you say, I will not bow to your expectations of who or what I should be. I will not stitch my lips shut and bite my tongue so that I choke on the blood of my own silence. I will not be shackled and chained by the doctrines of men who manipulate religion when I live in a democracy of liberation that the women before me fought and died for. I will not be bullied with a gun to my head when my only crime is my yearning to tell my own story in the way that it should be told. I will not be delusioned by the delusions that you have of yourself and of myself. I will not flap my wings slowly because you cannot handle the power of the gusts of the winds of change that I awaken with every step that I take. And I will not birth life simply because you believe that pro-choice is your choice and must be every woman's choice. I will not relinquish my marvelous feminine energy to a self-righteous demigod who frowns upon a single woman, a single mother, the career woman, the knowledge-hungry woman, curvaceous madams and motherless divas with high heels and makeup on fleek. I will not deny that I love to make love because of you. I will not love my queendom any less, and I will not stop believing that I am blessed. I will not stop demanding that our mothers and sisters and daughters be given the space to walk, to dance, to talk, and to take a stance against sexual harassment within every arena. And I will not stop advocating that women should be able to take a stance against rape without being seen as petty little liars who simply crave sympathy for themselves and their vaginas. For I am the epitome of courage, of fearlessness, a hurricane so formidable, so intoxicatingly potent. I am the matriarch. I am the queen. I am the woman who every woman must be. I am fearless.
Is anyone else ready to cheer after that? Oh my goodness, what a striking a performance. I'm drinking it in. I am drinking it in. You, Patty, how did you feel during that? Were you getting up dancing?
Absolutely inspired, driven. We should all be free to be fearless and just move.
Yes, I felt like her performance was just this statement of the female experience, and she's just like lifting us all up with her fierce courageousness. Gosh, we all just like, I hear, everyone in the comments right now, I'm just loving this. You're ready to own my queendom. Being fearless can be having fear and doing it anyways. Absolutely. I'm just so excited that you guys all were moved by that as much as I was. Whew.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed the first half. We are now going to take a 5-minute break, and we will see you back here for the second half of TEDx Bainbridge Island Women, Still We Rise.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second half of TEDx Bainbridge Island Women, Still We Rise. I don't know about you, but I was dancing during the break, very moved. I think I speak for both of us when I say we are really excited about the inspirational speakers still coming up in the second half. And a reminder that you may add questions into the Q&A and share your thoughts in the chat. Patty, who do we have next?
We have an amazing local speaker. I'm excited to introduce Lynn Brunelle, award-winning writer and author. She is a 4-time Emmy award-winning writer for Bill Nye the Science Guy. Lynn Brunelle has over 25 years of experience writing for people of all ages across all media. She has been a science, English, and an art teacher for K through 12, and an editor, illustrator, and award-winning author of over 45 titles, including Pop Bottle Science and Mama's Little Book of Tricks. She is the creator of the Mama Gone Geek blog and a contributor to NPR's Science Friday and NBC's New Day Northwest as a family science guru. Brunelle has won Telly and Scene Awards for her videos, ranging in topics from bullying prevention to science literacy and STEAM. Her book, a memoir called Mama Gone Geek, won the Independent Publishing Award Gold Medal. I am so excited to introduce Lynn Brunelle in Disappearing is Not an Option, Women in STEM and Beyond.
When I was in 3rd grade, my teacher pulled me aside before recess one day to give me some advice that she thought would be helpful for me. She said, you know, if you want the boys to like you, you won't be such a know-it-all in class. Because every time you raise your hand and enthusiastically yell out an answer, you're actually not allowing them to shine, and it hurts their feelings. That was the first time I remember being asked to disappear because I was a girl, but it wasn't the last. When I was 10, I was one of the first 2 girls in the state of Maine to be on the Little League team. And it was a pretty big deal. I was proud of myself. The parents of some of the boys on my team would also give me some helpful advice. And they would say things like, honey, what are you doing playing in the dirt with the boys and getting all sweaty? Don't you think that they would appreciate it if you were in the stands, kind of like cheering them on? And when I was in 8th grade, I was on the field hockey team. And I went to practice one day only to discover that that day I didn't have practice. But the 8th grade boys soccer team had practice. And the coach, whose name was Mr. Braun, I kid you not, asked me if I wanted to practice with the team. And since I had a crush on half the boys on the soccer team, I thought, awesome idea. So I did. And it was actually really fun. I was in the middle of the pack. I was feeling pretty good about myself until I heard Mr. Braun's voice from the sideline yelling, Ted, you're letting a girl beat you. And Phil, you're behind a girl. And I realized at that moment, he did not invite me to come because he thought I was an athlete that would be, enjoying the workout. He invited me because I was a girl and because I represented a low bar with which that he could shame the boys into working harder. Awesome. In my professional life, I face this sort of, weird bias all the time. I had been told that I didn't get a job on a particular project because it was just known genetically men are funnier than women, and there were men that were applying for the job. I have been passed over for jobs because I'm a mom, and I was told they didn't want to put me in the pressure situation of having to choose between my family and my work. I know that men doing the same job that I do get paid more. So these things are happening, but am I sitting here feeling sorry for myself and just like giving you a list of all the wages, the bad things that were waged against me because I'm a female? I'm not. And do I think that the people who have said these things to me have been trying to hurt me? I don't. I actually think a lot of these people thought they were doing me a favor. They were just responding to what they thought the social norms were in terms of gender. And they wanted me to be sure I understood how girls and women should act in society. I just never really bought into it. But the fact that I didn't buy into it doesn't mean that it didn't hurt. And sometimes these comments and these situations and these challenges that I face, they do splinter you and turn you into an insecure puddle sometimes. So I have come up with a handful of things that I lean into every day because this does happen. These challenges are there. 5 things that I'm going to share with you today for people who are in fields that are dominated by men, and also for girls who may be looking to STEM fields and think, I don't know whether I want to face that. You can navigate these things with power and grace. And here are 5 ways that I do it. Number 1, know that you belong. You are perfectly capable, even if you sometimes feel like a fraud. I don't know anybody who has not had that feeling of feeling like an imposter in the room. I remember the first time I won an Emmy for the writing I did for Bill Nye the Science Guy. Even though I knew that the work I had done was good and the team that I had done it with was wonderful, and I had that statue in my hand, I was still waiting for at least 2 months for the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences to call me back and say, we made a mistake. Can you send that statue back? Which thankfully they didn't. I do a couple of things. I lean into my network of women, strong women who know me professionally and who know me privately. You want to find out how far I've come and what I still have to offer. That's really great strength for me. And I also reach back into my community. I might call out to a senior center or mentor a child or go into a school or teach a class or do an assembly, because by reaching back to my community and offering back and giving what I am good at, I realize that I do have something to offer. So those things help me buoy up when I don't feel like I quite belong. Number 2, look to mentors. Look, women have been part of the story since the get-go, but we haven't gotten credit for that. But actually, we're in kind of a cool place now because some of these stories are coming more to light. Sure, we all know Marie Curie. Did you know that she won 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 aspects of chemistry? That was pretty cool. We've heard of Katherine Johnson, thanks to Hidden Figures. She did the calculations that allowed NASA to put a human being on the planet, on the moon, and bring them back safely. So that was pretty cool. And then there's Hedy Lamarr, who was this like bombshell of a movie star in the 30s and 40s. She was gorgeous, but beyond that, she was brilliant. She just didn't get credit for that brilliance. She didn't go to Hollywood parties after work. She would go home she had a little laboratory in her house, and she would go there and create things. She was an inventor and she was a problem solver. And the things that she created back then that she didn't get credit for early on in her lifetime have given us the basis for GPS and Wi-Fi and have allowed us to be able to communicate on our devices in a safe way. Pretty remarkable. So those are women that we've heard of, but there are a few that you might not have heard of, like Celia Payne, who in the 1920s was studying astrophysics at Oxford, but Oxford didn't believe in giving women degrees back then. So she came over to Harvard and she became the first person, male or female, to get a doctorate in astrophysics and became the chair of the department at Harvard. She also was the person who asked, "What is dark matter?" and answered it, which is a pretty big deal in astrophysics. There's Tu Youyou, who was a Chinese woman. She was the first person to win a Nobel Prize in China. And she grew up in the 1950s in China, not exactly a supportive environment for women in STEM, but she still got her doctorate at Beijing University in pharmacology. And she came up with a treatment for malaria that saved millions of lives. And then there's Gracie Young, who is a computer scientist in this country and a member of the Cherokee Nation, who is fascinated with languages and wanting to stop languages from disappearing. And she's created some really cool apps to be able to connect students with native speakers so that this language revitalization can take place. Women are everywhere doing amazing things. And the moment I start feeling sorry for myself or start whirling into this, oh, am I not good enough? I just think to them and I think of the challenges that they have faced and surmounted, and I get inspired again. Number 3, embrace the challenge. Sure, you can look at this unfairness because it's not going away. And you can say, oh, it's a male-dominated world. But you know what? Looking at it and becoming bitter is not this. It's just not a helpful way to do it. You tweak the lens. You see it as a challenge, right? It's not true. Like talent and knowledge is not gender-based. Everybody deserves a seat at the table and everybody deserves the voice. So yay. Number 4, take credit for your work. How many times has this happened to you? It's happened to me. I sit at a table, I come out with an idea that I think is a good idea. I don't seem to be heard. But then 5 minutes later, the guy next to me or the one across the table says the same thing and he's praised for his creativity. You know, it happens to me a lot, but I don't think it's necessarily like an intentional thing. So take credit for it. You don't have to shame anyone. I like to make a joke or just say, hey, thanks for listening. I'm glad you heard that I said that a few minutes ago. Take credit when you earn it. And the final thing, the fifth thing, be authentic. Be yourself. You know what? You get to be robustly, enthusiastically interested in whatever you are interested in. You get to love science. You get to be the kid that raises her hand. You get to be the know-it-all in class. And you know what? Boys and girls will still like you. So that's terrific. The world is full of wonder, and there's much work to be done. But our challenges of women in this world are not going to disappear. But that's okay, because neither are we. Thank you.
Wow, powerful words from an incredible local woman. As a woman who's worked in tech for a really long time, I can also relate to this. So many things that Lynn said just struck a chord. Know you belong. Lean into your network of women, reaching back to our communities. Our communities are here. Our friends, our colleagues, our neighbors, everyone is here. And I know for certain that just by asking for help or assistance, people will be there. Take credit for your work. Huge one. Embrace the challenge. I love this one. For if we see challenges instead as opportunities, anything is possible. Most importantly, be authentic. Get passionate about what you're passionate about. Share, be excited. That's your right, your divine right as a human being. So exciting. What are your thoughts, Lena?
Wow, I was pretty blown away. And like you, I loved hearing her, say, go out there, be curious, be passionate, be authentic. Talent and knowledge is not gender-based. And someone in the comments said, you can't be what you can't see. So go out there and be that, so that the others who want to have that same experience and have those same passions see others and are moved by that. And for our youth who are right now looking to all of us and as guides, so we have that responsibility too. Lynn is such inspiration to me. I totally look up to her. So thank you for that great talk. Well, we'll move into our sixth speaker. I will be introducing Kemi De Silva Ibru, a women's health specialist. As a qualified physician with more than 15 years of experience in private practice, Dr. Kemi De Silva Ibru dedicates her time to addressing the needs of girls and women. Dr. Kemi is a specialist obstetrician and a gynecologist with a master's in public health from Johns Hopkins University and is currently obtaining her PhD in gender-based violence from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in the UK. Her unmitigated passion for women's rights led her to found WARIF, Women at Risk International Foundation, in Nigeria. The foundation addresses the prevalence of rape and gender-based violence through intervention and treatment for girls and women, and by providing effective preventative measures. Dr. De Silva Ibru has been recognized with several awards, including Leading Ladies Africa 100 Most Inspiring Women in Nigeria in 2018, recognition by the British Council in Nigeria and her network's 2019 Women of the Year in Advocacy. And in 2020, she was recognized as CNN COVID Heroes and Newsmakers, African Edition. So here is Kemi De Silva Ibru with her talk addressing gender-based violence amidst a pandemic, curated by TEDx Lagos.
We all know about the pandemic that has come to define 2020. Understandably, COVID-19 has dominated the world's agenda, and mandatory lockdowns were introduced in many countries to help control the spread of the virus. For many of us, the lockdown was inconvenient. We couldn't go to our normal places of business, we couldn't visit family or friends, and we couldn't socialize publicly. But for some people, though the freedom to get out of the house was not just a matter of convenience, but of physical safety and even life or death. Based on my work, I see the great majority of those vulnerable people are women. And this resonates with me, especially today, as I give my talk,
from the safety of my home. As a practicing obstetrician and gynecologist, I am all too aware of the prevalence of gender-based violence in communities across Nigeria. And this is why I founded the Women at Risk International Foundation, WARIF, in 2016 in response to this. Global estimates published by the WHO indicate that 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced an act of violence. And this was before the lockdown. In March, an increase in the number of cases of violence against women was becoming apparent across the world, amounting to a shadow pandemic that we are now faced with globally. In France, for example, there was a 30% increase in the number of cases of domestic violence. And in Argentina, emergency calls from domestic violence cases increased by 25%. In the first 2 weeks of the lockdown in Lagos State, our emergency phone lines rang non-stop, and we recorded a 64% increase in calls from women trapped at home with abusers in fear for their lives. By June, the authorities became aware of the shadow pandemic, and a state of emergency on rape was declared by the federal government of Nigeria. As we fielded the distressing calls from girls and women, young and old, we were able to help, as thankfully we kept the WARIF Rape Crisis Center open as a refuge of last resort. In the more remote areas, many women had to walk miles to receive any medical care and attention, as there was no transportation because of the lockdown. They had no internet access to reach social media platforms, and they had limited phone services to call a 24-hour confidential helpline or even a neighbor. So the situation for these women was much worse. Our solution in addressing this was this. There are over 3,000 traditional birth attendants working in rural areas across Lagos State today. These are community-based men and women who have been informally trained and provide basic health care to both women and expectant mothers. But none of them had received any form of training on how to help women suffering from domestic violence. We successfully trained 1,300 of these community gatekeepers as first responders in addressing the cases of violence against women in their communities. This meant that during the lockdown, they were galvanized to go house to house in their communities, and with their training, were able to offer the necessary assistance to women trapped at home, unable to receive care. Reports varied from verbal and emotional abuse to far worse beatings and sexual violence. But those home visits served as an opportunity for these women to share their stories and to receive the much-needed care and support that the traditional birth attendants offered. This program has been rolled out across an additional 7 local communities and has reached nearly 35,000 people, raising awareness of the shadow pandemic in these communities. In the months to come, we plan on including our other gatekeepers, the law enforcement officials, and the religious leaders, truly impacting on communities and on the safety and the lives of these women. As we embrace the new normal of working remotely from home and with online schooling, it is more than likely that more women will be trapped at home with their abusers, and this shadow pandemic will persist. But I take hope and inspiration from the courage and determination of the many who work to protect and support these women. I have been awed by the unbelievable strength and the tenacity that these women have shown during these precarious times, and their ability to find their power in spite of all of this adversity. So with or without the pandemic, the work to protect girls and women continues. Because every girl and woman, no matter what part of the world she lives, has the right to live in a society free of any form of violence against her. Thank you.
Wow. You can see why she was recognized as one of the most inspiring women in Africa in 2018. Her work is profound and is making a direct impact. I'm given hope when I witness a woman identifying a need and then working towards alleviating it. And I love what she said there at the end. Every girl and every woman has the right to live in a society free of any form of violence against her.
Absolutely. This pandemic has given us all an opportunity to see and address being isolated, and to be trapped is such a terrifying situation. And so for us to be able to look at leaders such as her and finding ways to get involved, to help, to educate, the numbers of volunteers that she was able to train was staggering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that, her next step is to bring in the other gatekeepers, the police and the religious factors to come in. Every woman should be given life-changing opportunities. I'm reading that in the chat. Absolutely. And it is inspiring to witness the community-led solutions to the shadow pandemic. Absolutely. Yeah, she said, strength and tenacity and finding your power, your own power through adversity. And I witnessed so many women around me doing that right now, today, all of us here, the videos, and let's all keep hearing the call to support each other in this. Recognize it. If you see one of your fellow women, say thank you. Is there any way that I can support you? And is there anybody I can help lift up and support?
Absolutely. It takes a community and the collective whole. We can all come together and make this world a safer, brighter place. Mm-hmm. So that takes us to our next speaker. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya is a former presidential candidate and leader of a national democratic movement in Belarus. By popular consensus, she received the most votes in the presidential election of Belarus on August 9th, 2020. However, the official results were falsified in favor of the incumbent, and she was forced out of her country. She leads the democratic movement out of the neighboring Lithuania. She fights for human rights, democracy, and freedom everywhere. I'm delighted to introduce her talk, How Fearlessness Created a Movement.
Girls went out on August 12, 2020. Two groups of girls went out to protest in Minsk, the capital city of Belarus. They put on white clothes and went barefoot out into the street. In the morning, some went to Komarovsky market in the center of town. Later that day, the other group gathered with flowers at the eternal flame under the Victory Monument. They stood together, holding hands, and they started to sing the Belarusian lullaby, waiting for the police cars to arrive. They knew the police would pick them up just like that, barefoot, with flowers in their hands, that they would take them to the police station, beat them up, and try to humiliate them. And yet, they did it anyway. This year, something changed in Belarus, a country of more than 9 million people that has been ruled by an authoritarian leader since 1994. These young women were protesting the latest rigged election result, which had taken just a few days earlier. Their small expressions of protest very quickly expanded into massive, peaceful, women-led demonstrations all across the country. Within just a few days, a few 100,000 people took to the streets, and demonstrations have continued ever since, the likes of which Belarus has never seen before. All this despite the fact that the president proclaimed himself re-elected and that more than 10,000 people have been detained, hundreds tortured, and at least 6 killed. Many people wonder why the people of Belarus are speaking up now. What makes them keep taking to the streets? Despite unprecedented police violence, despite state lawlessness. The answer I hear the most is that people have become fearless. And it's something we have become together. Because fear is the province of one. It feeds on isolation. It doesn't discriminate. Men, women, children, elderly, all of us can feel fear, but only as long as we are on our own. Fearlessness takes two. It only works if and when we show up for each other. Show up so that your neighbor, your colleague, your friend has courage. And they will do the same for you. A lot has been made of my own role in the presidential election of August 2020. How I stepped in to run for my husband Sergei when he was jailed, and it became clear that the authorities would deny him his chance to run himself. How I rightfully won the election and became the elected leader of a democratic Belarus, but the official results only gave me 10% of the vote, and I was forced into exile with my children. How I still fight for those who voted for me and whose voice the regime wants to steal. How fearless I am. But there were many moments when I was frightened and I wanted to step down. I was threatened and forced to believe that I am alone in this fight. And yet, the more cities I visited, the more people showed up for the rallies, the less fear I had. And then, in the days before the election in Minsk, 60,000 people came to show their support for me, and I was no longer afraid. I never wanted to do any of this. I was never overly political, and I never planned to run for office. I wanted to be a mom and a wife. But by fate and the will of my people, I was elevated to this position. And I accept this with a sense of duty and pride. I will not give up. And I will show up for people because they show up for me. Our courage is born from unity. Our solidarity is our strength. I also now understand that being fearless is a commitment. It is a decision you make every single day. It is a responsibility you take. Responsibility for one another. In this regard, I am no different from my fellow Belarusians. Their support is tangible. Their solidarity grows in progression. When there are 2 of you, you are daring. When you are 100, you are brave. When there are thousands of you, you are fearless. And once you are tens of thousands, you become invincible. Thank you.
Wow. I am so grateful that we get to introduce everyone to these incredible women from all across the world. It is truly an inspiration as a woman to see these groundbreaking leaders making a difference in our world. Fear feeds on isolation. Fearlessness takes 2. Courage comes from unity. Powerful stuff. It's how we show up for one another. There are so many ways that we can do that, especially in times of pandemic, quarantine, isolation. It's so easy to feel alone, and yet here we all are together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right here. You know, she really highlights the power of community, and that's what we all are right here. Bainbridge Island women, still we rise. We are a community, and I just really believe in that power. And I think, again, she highlighted how important it was for us to be supporting everybody else. And I loved her approach to fear and how she connected it to courage. And that when we show up for others, that they show up for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, such great speakers. I'm so moved. I am so moved by all of them. I hope you all are too.
I love to be here, holding space for everyone.
Yeah, it's so fun. Well, we'll move on to our 8th speaker, and it is my great pleasure to introduce Bainbridge Islander Hilary Franz, the Washington State Commissioner of Public Lands. Hilary has a long and esteemed history of leadership and advocacy. She was sworn in as Washington's 14th Commissioner of Public Lands in January 2017, only the 2nd woman to serve since statehood in 1889, only the 2nd. Prior to being elected, Commissioner Franz was Executive Director of FutureWise, an organization committed to implementing smart, sustainable land use and transportation policies. She served 4 years on our very own Bainbridge Island City Council, where she developed nationally recognized energy and environmental policies and programs. In addition, Hilary has served on numerous state and regional boards and commissions, working to strengthen and protect both the environment and local economies. She holds a bachelor's degree from Smith College and a Juris Doctorate from Northeastern University Law School. Franz is a 3rd-generation farmer and a small forest owner, and she is the mother of 3 wonderful sons whom she raised on a small historic farm, along with 12 sheep, 2 goats, 7 pigs, 3 cats, and 100 chickens. And now here is the inspirational Hilary Franz with her talk, Women as a Force of Nature.
Thank you. Well, this has been a standout year for Mother Nature. COVID, a global deadly pandemic. Wildfires ravaged the Western US. Tropical cyclones and hurricanes did a number on our coasts. Even murder hornets tormented us. And no one in the world was free of Mother Nature's wrath. Disrupted economic systems, increased homelessness, massive unemployment, opened up long hidden systemic racial and social injustice. These crises oftentimes feel very much out of our control. However, crisis is not new to our world. What is new is a shortage of courageous leadership. Leadership that is like Mother Nature, is so bold, so determined, fueled by something larger than itself, a compassion and a moral urgency to change the world for the better. For too long, half of our population has been left out of this equation. In business, in government, and on the fire line, women represent only 7.4% of Fortune 500 CEOs, only 18% of US governors, less than 10% of our firefighters. Why is this? Yes, others have limited our access to serve as leaders with plenty of rules, requirements, and biases. But we have also chosen to be limited. We choose to doubt ourselves. We choose to judge ourselves. We choose to silence ourselves. We choose to follow, not lead. We choose comfort over courage sometimes. Frankly, more than ever before, we need more women speaking up, jumping in, acting out, and leading like a force of nature, like something out of others' control. First, we need to stop questioning ourselves. Since I was small, I wanted to be in public office. I had a dream to be a congresswoman, mayor of a big city, governor of a state. And this dream started really early for me. From roaming the halls of City Hall in Portland, where my father, a single parent, worked, to doorbelling at the age of 7 for Senator Ted Kulongoski of Oregon. I remember becoming so enamored by him and asked my father if I could work on his campaign at 7. My father agreed, and then he took me door to door like I was trick-or-treating, house to house. He stood at the bottom, and I'd walk up the stairs, and I'd knock on the door, and give my pitch. But something happened between the years of the big dreams of this 7-year-old girl and the 30-year-old, 40-year-old woman I became. I got distracted, working full time, raising 3 boys, caring for my father with dementia, and 100 chickens on the farm. I got good with excuses too, and I forgot my 7-year-old's dream. To be completely honest with you, I got afraid of my 7-year-old girl dream. Until 4 years ago, I had the chance to run a statewide campaign to lead our state's natural disaster response and manage over 6 million acres of land and water and much, much more. It was the perfect job for me based on my work as an environmental attorney. Just one problem. 6 people had already jumped into the race, and one of them had over 25 years in politics at all levels. Everyone who I asked whether I should run said, "You can't win." For weeks, that's all I heard. You can't win. The odds are stacked against you, Hilary. You're too old. You're too young. You don't know anyone. No one knows you. You have no experience, no money, and no time. So when the door finally opened to fulfilling my 7-year-old childhood dream, I froze. For weeks, I suffered in agony, to run, to not run, to run, to not run. I couldn't stay in this paralysis forever. So I finally, on the back of a napkin, sat down and listed the pros and cons of me finally following this 7-year-old girl dream. Pros. I could help address our greatest challenges: climate change, wildfire, drought, flooding, poverty, education, unemployment. Cons. I could lose. I could humiliate myself, my family. I then called for a lifeline, a longtime mentor, and I listed off those pros and those cons. And he said, "Hilary, this is the easiest decision of your entire life." I looked at him. "Are you crazy? If this was easy, I would not have lost sleep for weeks. I wouldn't have stopped eating entirely and doubled the wrinkles on my forehead." He said, "Hilary, the cons, those are all about you. This isn't about you. This is about something much larger than you and what you can do in this world." And with that, I was off and running and winning. Winning not just in the campaign, but in life. I finally freed myself of my fears, my doubts, and all that held me back in my entire life. The fact is, our world shrinks or expands in proportion to how much courage we have. More than ever, this world needs courage. More than ever, this world needs more women who fear nothing, who shrink from nothing, who are defeated by nothing. Second, we need to stop asking for permission or approval. In my first campaign, everywhere I turned, people said, "How can a little lady like you do a big job like that? Fires, floods, natural disasters of all kinds." If I had looked to the outside world to give me permission to run and to try to tackle this job, I would have been waiting for a very, very long time. And the world would have been waiting too. We need to stop asking permission or looking for approval to act. Women are more likely to look outside ourselves to answer what we should say, what we should do, what we're capable of doing, how we should behave. When we look outside ourselves for those answers, we give away our voice. We give away our energy, our value, our power, our ability to change the world. We're essentially saying we trust others' opinions more than we trust ourselves. We need to listen to ourselves more, believe in ourselves more, and trust in ourselves more. Third, we need to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. There is nothing at all that's comfortable with earthquakes, tornadoes, tsunamis, wildfires, or murder hornets for that matter. They are unsettling and transformative. Unfortunately, too often in a destructive way. Women, on the other hand, well, we can be constructive, life-changing, positive force of nature. When we get in the arena, we change ourselves, we change the status quo, we change the world. In conclusion, I want to say when women lose ourselves, the world loses its way. With so many challenges facing our world, we need now more than ever for women to unmute themselves, to step out of line, to get uncomfortable, to follow our dreams, our passion, and our mission, to get in the arena and be a force of nature. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow.
Powerful.
My goodness. You know, Patty, Franz is the last name of my grandparents. I wonder if Hilary and I are related. I heard such a rallying cry from Hilary that echoed some of our other speakers tonight about getting out there and going for it. And I was just thinking, you know, if we all took a moment to think about what our 7-year-old's dream was and where we are now. Of course, dreams evolve and change as we grow, but how many of us still have that dream somewhere inside of us? And I was thinking, how can we create a world for all the 7-year-olds who are out there right now? All of these 7-year-olds that are formulating these dreams. I want to make sure that we are creating this world that supports them chasing that.
Absolutely. What struck me is that we need to stop asking for permission and approval. We need to unmute ourselves. Oh my goodness, how many times have we all muted ourselves? How many times have we suppressed who we are? Withheld the world and those around us from who we are because we're paralyzed by our own fear.
Mm-hmm.
And what struck me the most is let's get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
I say game on, let's go.
Game on, let's do this. All of us here right now, all of us need to make that commitment. We're all going to go for it. We're all going to get uncomfortable and we're all going to support each other in that process. We're going to get courageous and ferocious.
Absolutely. Well, that leads us to our final speaker. Tracy Young is a construction engineer turned startup CEO. After witnessing the inefficient ways technology was used or not in construction, Tracy Young co-founded PlanGrid, a company focused on developing productivity software for the construction industry. Co-created in 2011, PlanGrid quickly grew to 450 employees. The software helped build more than 1 million construction projects around the globe before it was acquired by Autodesk in 2018 for $875 million. Before developing PlanGrid, Young helped build hospitals in the Bay Area. I'm very excited to introduce her talk, Embracing Female Leadership as a Strength. I'd also like to note that this talk may be triggering for some individuals. So with that warning, we are so excited to bring you Tracy Young.
My parents were refugees of communism. Growing up, I watched my mom and dad work 2 full-time jobs without ever complaining, so my siblings and I could live a better life than they did. I was proud to be their daughter, and I understood the immigrant part of my identity well. The female part of my identity, however, was much harder for me to own. I never wanted to draw attention to my gender because I was afraid I wouldn't be taken seriously as a CEO. So I focused my energy on the things that I thought were important, stuff like making my team laugh. I remember I would painstakingly write and rehearse jokes before every all hands, or I'd be the first one in the office and the last one out because I thought that these things mattered. When I was 6 months pregnant, one of our large competitors reached out wanting to talk about acquiring us. Every startup wants the option to be bought, but it really got under my skin when, during conversations with these strangers who I was negotiating with, their eyes would sometimes wander to my pregnant belly. I went into labor the same night of our user conference. The weeks leading up to the event, watching our team prepare for our big product unveiling, I wondered how many male CEOs would skip their own conference for the birth of their child. I assumed most would, but I kept reasoning with myself that if I wasn't pregnant, there'd be no question whether I'd be there or not, so I have to be there. Forcing myself to parade my 9-month pregnancy, work the halls as host, on my feet for 14 hours, was a bad idea in hindsight. The moment I arrived home, my water broke and my contractions started, and I wouldn't hear my son's first cry for another 32 hours. When my baby was 6 weeks old, I went back to work. Our M&A deal had fallen through by then, and I was determined to fundraise a war chest to fight them back. But I was still bleeding from several tears in my vagina from pushing out a baby. To this day, I still ask myself why I rushed back to work when I wasn't ready. And I realize now it was because I was afraid. I was so afraid of what people might think of me as a new mother and CEO. I was afraid that they would think that my priorities had changed. So I pressured myself into proving to everyone that I was as dedicated to the company as ever. I would spend the next 2 months fundraising to secure our war chest. I had a full schedule and I needed to pump milk. But I didn't have the courage to ask for $50 million and ask to use their mother's room. So how does one pump milk on Sand Hill Road? Well, I would park my car in front of someone's super nice home in Palo Alto. I'd undress and extract milk from my breast with a silicone hand pump. It worked out, I guess. We secured a lead investor for our Series C, and then our competitors came back with a revised offer, and we decided to sell to them for $875 million. A few months after the acquisition, I became pregnant for the second time. And shortly after I found out, I had a miscarriage. While with my team, I felt it slip out of me. I went to the bathroom and it fell to the floor. I didn't know what to do, so I just walked back out to the team, pretending as if nothing happened. It took going through infertility, miscarriage, pregnancy, giving birth without any drugs while running a company for me to realize how wrong I was to hide my womanhood as if it's something I'm ashamed of. For so long, I thought I had to be what I thought a good male CEO looked like so that I wouldn't be judged or treated differently. I was so constricted by my belief that businesses value maleness more, and it made me afraid to be a woman, which meant I hid a massive part of who I was from everyone. When I dared to be fully myself, when I dared to trust and share my frustrations and my anger and my sadness and my tears with my team, I became a much happier and more effective leader because I was finally honest in who I was, and my team responded to that. One of the most important side effects of leading as my complete raw self was seeing our culture evolve to a more close-knit and effective version of itself. I remember we had several back-to-back rough quarters. It felt like everything was in shambles. And I didn't have time to prepare for an all hands. And then it was time for me to speak. So I walked up to the mic cold and I started talking openly about my concerns on competition, the mistakes we had made in sales strategy, really exposing the weaknesses of our company. And I asked the team for help. That completely changed the conversation and how we would build and solve problems together. As we collectively brought our full selves to work, we were able to accomplish so much more in terms of revenue growth and the most products shipped the company had seen. And it progressed us from a startup to a medium-sized business. Whoever you are, if you're thinking about starting a startup or you're thinking about leading, do it. And don't be afraid to trust and be yourself completely. I wish I knew that a decade ago and learn from my mistakes. If you find yourself fundraising on Sand Hill, needing to pump milk, go use their nice-ass mother's rooms. Thank you.
Wow.
Powerful words, powerful story from such an inspiring woman. Having worked 20 years in technology myself as a single mom, worked 2 days before I had my child and back at work less than a week later. Her story is strikingly identifiable. And I'm left with wondering, and how could things be different if we are free to ask for help, dare to trust and share, embrace who we are as women, change the conversation, let's ask for help, and we'd be amazed at what shows up.
I would love to see all of us speak up for the other women around us too, and be supportive in that way, because getting the courage and trusting ourselves, like one of our other speakers was saying, is so much more powerful when we step out and then others step with us. And I'm reading the comments. We've got, time to change the culture of business rather than change ourselves to fit the culture.
Spot on.
Spot on, absolutely.
And being honest with ourselves and others.
Mm-hmm.
No one's a mind reader. They don't know what we need. Being authentic and asking.
Yeah, and the men out there, you can stand up too. And, in this situation, the men could have come together and helped advocate for, longer parental leave.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's so many ways in which all of us can come together and assist each other. And I'm grateful that we have all of these women who shared with us tonight, because there was a lot of great themes that came through. Supporting each other, mentoring each other.
Unmuting ourselves. Being courageous. Just go for it. Coming together as a community, finding strength there. Gratitude, a magical mantra. Magical, yes. Wow. Well, thank you all so very much for joining us today. This has been a beautiful space of time to gather together. Mm-hmm. So definitely struck me very deeply, and I hope that the videos are something that are going to create thought in you, and perhaps thought changes the way that you exist in your community and will inspire you into some action. And they'll be hosted on TEDx. So there's the ability to share them with others and watch them again. Thank you so much.
Yes, again, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for interacting with us through the Q&A and the chat. I loved being able to hear all of your ideas worth spreading, and I loved being able to hear all of your thoughts on all the talks, including Patty and Talina. I loved hearing your thoughts after each talk, and I think all of them were just so inspiring. And thank you to our live speakers for being here today. I loved hearing your stories. I'm sure many of you also loved them as well. Thank you to our executive team and our partners and our sponsors for helping being able to put on this event. And it looks like we're going to let you all go about 13 minutes early. And so thank you all for joining us. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you all. We can bring everybody up. We can all say goodbye together. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Be the change.